Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. If you have not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, like the content, please hit that thumbs up. So today we have the excursion back in the garage and we're going to do some work to it today, and I'll let you know what we're going to do here in a second. So let's get into it. All right, like I said, we got the excursion back in here. There's a oil vapor that's basically all over the engine compartment, and it starts pretty hard in the mornings when I first start it. So I'm thinking we got some injector issues, but I don't know until we get torn into. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to tear this thing down, pull the valve covers off, see if we got an injector that's puking oil. And then if we do, then we'll reseal all the injectors. So right here, I have a brand new set of all 8 injectors, seals that we got. And the roll of tubing behind that, we are also going to do the CCV mod that I've seen. And that will keep most of the oil vapors out of the engine, which I hear is a good thing to do. So let's get into it. And once I get down to pulling off all the tubes and everything that's out of the way, then I will show you what we got. So stay tuned. All right, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. So I have the air intake off. That plug's been back here, goes up here, it bolts to a bracket that's right here that holds that clip. I got that disconnected, so you can take this off. I got the intercooler pipe taken off. So this side's pretty much ready to take the valve cover off. You can't really see it real good, but there is a little bit of oil around the bottom of that CCV valve, along with all over the bottom of the turbo. So I've got new seals for the CCV valve, but we're gonna flop that around and do the mod anyway, so that won't be going back the way that is there. But we're just gonna get all this cleaned up. Probably pull this valve cover off before we go to the other side, because the other side is a lot more of a pain in the butt than this side. So I'll be back in a second. Alright, so as you can see, I have the valve cover off now, and this side is fairly easy. All these bolts are pretty well out in the open, except that bolt way back there. It's kind of a bear. The one in the very back is a different color, but I verified it is an AD, so all these are ADs, but I guess that one's been changed out at some point in this truck's life because it is not the same as the others. But we are going to go over to the passenger side and start taking that apart and see what we get. And just so you can see, this is why I say this one's a lot harder, because, well, you can barely even see the valve cover, not alone get to it. And the bolts along this air box are pretty well sucked to get to, as long as the one in the back. So we're going to pull this intercooler pipe off and get the battery out of the way and start getting some of this stuff out of our way so we can get this one off. But this is the view of the passenger one. It sucks. So we'll be back in a minute. Alright, so you can see I have the passenger side intake off. They're all AD fuel injectors. The one in the very back, you can't really tell, but it has oil all over the top of the injector, where none of the other ones really do. So I'm wondering if that one is the one that's causing me problems, but I won't know until I crank this thing up without valve covers on, and I'm probably going to make a hell of a mess. But that's what I need to do to figure out what the problem is with this thing. And just a disclaimer, I am not a diesel mechanic. I have never been farther than where I am right now on a diesel motor, so this will be the first time I'm doing this and I'm filming it. So we will attempt to crank this thing back up after we plug in all the plugs over there, and see if we have any injectors that are blowing oil past the seals, which is what I think the problem is, and we will go from there. So see you in a bit. Okay, so just to let everybody know what I'm fixing to do. So I've got everything hooked up as far as harnesses, map sensor, and all the stuff that I disconnected to get the valve covers off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire the truck up and see if I have any oil bypassing the injectors, which gives a hard start condition, which is what I have. To basically I'm troubleshooting to make sure the injectors are good and not leaking or bypassing from the O-rings. I've never done this. I have never been farther than this, so this is a first for me, and we will try this. I've watched a few videos to get to this point, and this is why I'm trying this. So I've got to put the batteries back in the truck still, and then we will go there. Since I'm by myself, I will not video this because it's going to be real quick jumping out of the truck, making sure I don't have any leaks, and then if I do have a leak, shutting the truck off before I flood my shop floor with oil. But that's where we're at. That's what we're going to do, and I'll be back and let you know what we find. And just one other point I want to point out before I do this is that turbo is going to be spooling up, and there's nothing protecting anything from being sucked in there. So make sure you don't have anything loose laying around that will get sucked up in there, because that will be a very bad day very quickly. It'll make today a lot worse if something gets sucked in there. So just make sure you don't have anything loose laying around. That's all I wanted to say. Well, can you see the oil all over the place? So that injector was pouring oil out of it. Up all over the intake. So we're going to do this the hard way, and we're going to pull injectors, which is what I really didn't want to do, but that confirms that I do have at least one that's bad. So we're going to clean all this up, and I'll be back. Okay, since we found one leaking, I will disconnect all the harnesses. I will pull the valve cover harnesses off because I will need to pry against those to pull the injectors out. I'll undo all the harnesses to the injectors and the glow plugs, and then we will essentially start pulling all the injectors out, inspecting O-rings, and replacing them as we go, one at a time. So that's the rest of my day. Once I get to a point where I'll show you what I'm doing, I will be back. Okay, so I got all the gaskets off. I got all the electrical unhooked. So the next step, according to the video I watched, is there's a plug right here, and then there's another one back here that drain this reservoir up here. So I'm going to pull these two plugs out, and I'm going to loosen up one of the H-pop plugs on top of the reservoir to drain the oil out of the reservoir, so when I pull the injectors, I don't drain all that oil down in the cylinders. So I'm going to do that on both sides, and we'll be back when I get that done. Alright, I'm going to try to show you a little bit better. That plug was right there and back there, and you can't really tell, but they are draining out of the back one on both sides. So being it's late in the afternoon, I'm going to let this drain and go get lunch, and then I'll be back, and then we will start pulling injectors and see what we see. So I will be back. Alright, so now that all the oil is drained out of the reservoir on both sides, we got to take the oil, I'm not sure, I don't remember what they're called, but oil valve or oil something off of these injectors before I actually start pulling the injectors. So that's what we're going to do next, and I'll get all this pulled off and we'll be back. So I was taking these off, and I noticed something, that this one is actually broke, because that's what that one looks like, but it's supposed to look like this, and that's where that oil was coming from. So I don't know if the injector is actually leaking or if that's just actually broke, because that's the direction the oil was coming. So it was coming out of that hole that gets that diverts it. So now I don't know if I got a piece of metal down in the engine, or if this was broke previously and when it got put back together. So I don't know. So I'm gonna have to do some more investigating on this. I don't see it sitting in the head, but that doesn't mean it ain't somewhere else that I can't see. But I'm this far in and I've already drained the oil, so I think at this point I'm just going to change all the seals just because. I don't know. So I have some thinking to do. So we'll be back. Well, I made the decision, since I'm this deep into it, to go ahead and replace the seals and O-rings and all that stuff on all these injectors. That way I know my luck is if I put this back together 3 months from now, I'll be back in here doing this all over again. So it's just, I might as well just do it now and be done with it. So I'm going to pull them out, put new O-rings on them, and I ordered a new oil deflector. It should be here in a few days, so I won't have this job completely done, but at least I will have the O-rings back on and the injectors back in and this thing ready to go get fixed. So I'm going to probably start on the hard side just to get that done and out of the way, because that just makes sense, and leave the easy ones, hopefully the easier ones, to the end. So once I get that done, I will be back. Alright, so we've got the first injector out, so we're going to pull these O-rings off. They don't actually look that bad, but we're going to change them since we're here. And this is the part number of the new kits that I have. So we'll get these off, clean this up, put it back in, and do 7 more. So we'll be back. And before I forget, you're going to need a good hook tool. The only thing is, when you go to take these O-rings off, don't stick it down in the groove and then drag it across, because you'll scratch the surface and then you'll have a leak. So try to put it in kind of sideways, just barely under the O-ring, to get the O-ring off. That way you don't scratch it and create a leak on its own. So just a tip. Okay, as you can see, I got all the O-rings off, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but this one actually has like a tear on it. So I don't know if it was that way when they put it on or what, but this one is definitely not 100%. So I'm sure we might find that, there it is, on the rest of them, or not. But we're going to go ahead and change these out and get this one cleaned up and put the new seals on it, get it all washed down, and put it back in. Okay, as you can see, it is a lot cleaner and a lot nicer now. So what I did was I took a piece of Scotch-Brite, went down in all the O-ring grooves, cleaned them up, and then I basically did from here all the way down and just kind of cleaned up all the buildup and all the residue and just made it nice and shiny. So we're going to get the new O-rings out and get them put on. I did get the crush washer off. So what I did was used an X-Acto knife and kind of worked it off that end, and then just kind of worked it off the tip, nice and easy. But yeah, so we're going to get the new O-rings out, get them put on, and get this one put in, and then do this 7 more times. And I figured I would show this. So this is the instructions that come with the new O-rings, and it actually tells you exactly how to put them on, and exactly how to put on the crush washer, even though it says optional. And it tells you what color they are and what material they're made out of. So makes it very helpful. Okay, as you can see, we got the new O-rings on. We made sure that this flat washer or flat O-ring was not ripped, and it was not. So the old one was definitely bad. So what I do is when I put them on, I just rotate them. You can even use your removal tool to kind of go around and make sure they're not rolled. And then I just used a socket, fits over the end, to put the crush washer on. And I put it on the way they showed in the picture. So the 2 humps are against the injector. The single hump is out here going to the cup. So we got this all cleaned up. And we're going to put this one back in, and when we get this one back in, we'll take the old one out and keep going. Okay, I figured I would come give you an update. So this is the last one on the passenger side, and you can see this little hair off of this, and this is the flat part, or the flat O-ring. So 3 of the 4, this one was the worst, have that little hair on it. So I don't know if that was done that when it was put on, if it's just, you know, bad, but 3 of the 4, that's the only thing I really found wrong with these O-rings. So we're going to put this one in and be done with the passenger side and start on the driver's side. Figured I would give an update. So this is the last one to go in. I found essentially the same thing on this side. I only found 2 that had that same kind of tearing on the flat seal. I did find one that was almost cut in half, but it was right next to the gap in the hard metal snap ring. And then down in one of the cups on one of the cylinders, I actually found a little piece of metal, something like a flake of something down in there. Not sure exactly what it was, but I got it fished out. So, and in between each one, as soon as I got the injector O-rings redone, I went up and cleaned out the bottom of the boots because it had stuff down in there, you know, the mixture and just gunk. So I just took a rag on the end of a sock or a extension and just went down in there and cleaned it up real good, made sure there was nothing left in there. So we're fixing to put this one back in. This is the last one we got to do, and then I got to run all the bolts in and get all those torqued up and then start putting this thing back together. So we'll be back in a little bit. Well, you can see they're all in. So I've got the bolts just run down, these bolts that hold the injectors in. I've got those run down just basically wrench tight. I have to look up the torque on those, and then I can torque those, and then I can put all but one of the oil deflectors on. And I've got that part on order. I'm just waiting for it to come in. So I'm pretty much to a stopping point up until putting that last oil deflector on. But I want to get everything torqued as far as I can today, and then I'll re-torque it again before I finish bolting everything up, just to make sure those crush washers are fully seated. Because when I took these out, some of them seemed pretty loose, while others were kind of wrench tight type deal. So they didn't feel like they were really torqued all that well. So that's kind of my plan. So I'm going to get that done and we'll be back. Well, I looked up the torque and it says for that bottom bolt, it says 120 inch-pounds, which seems awful light, but that's what I torqued them to. And then I have all of the oil deflectors on. That was 9 foot-pounds is what it called for. So those are all torqued except this one because it's broke. I put the one from this side on the other side because it was harder to get to. This is the easiest one to get to, so I'll put the new one on that when it comes in. But all of them are torqued to spec. So everything is up to putting the harnesses back in and closing this all up. But I can't because of that one oil deflector. I'm not sure when I'm going to get it, but that's ordered. So when I get it, I'll put that in, torque that, and then I'm going to re-torque all the injector bolts just to make sure that they are in and tight before I button all this thing back up. Because the last thing I want to do is come in here and do this again. So that's where we're going to leave it until we get the part. So until then, I will be back. Well, here we are a week later, and I still don't have the part that I need to finish this up. I'm still waiting on a non-broken oil deflector. But what we can do in the meantime is I'm gonna go down there and I'm gonna put a socket and a breaker bar on the crank pulley bolt, and I'm going to try to turn this motor over to make sure that I don't have a hydrolocked cylinder. I'm really hoping I don't, but if I do, what I'll have to do is come up here and pull all the glow plugs out and then pull it through to get all the fuel, oil, coolant, whatever out of each cylinder. I really hope I don't have to do that, but I'll let you know what we find, and as I go get a socket and stuff to pull this motor over a few times to make sure we're good to go. So I'll be back. Well, I am very happy to report that I turned over the motor. I don't know how many times I rotated it, but it was a good amount underneath from the crank bolt, and I did not feel any hard resistance, which tells me that I did not drop enough oil and stuff into the combustion chamber to hydrolock the motor, which is awesome. So I feel confident that I'll be able to start the truck. So with that said, I know I'm probably going to kill the batteries from trying to crank this over to get it to restart. I know it won't start because obviously I'm not hooking up the injectors or anything, any of the harnesses, because I don't want all that stuff in the way. But I know it's also going to take quite a while to turn the motor over to prime the oil, prime the fuel, get everything back into fuel rails. And since I know I'm probably going to kill the batteries, I'm just going to go ahead and try to start the truck till the batteries pretty much are gone, so I can pull the batteries back out and recharge them and get them ready for when I actually get the part. And I want to also say that I don't believe it's the shipper's problem. I did buy the oil deflectors off of eBay with an expected ship or arrival time between Thursday and Tuesday. I was really hoping they'd be here Thursday or Friday. They didn't get here. Today's Saturday. I did look it up, and it said that they will get here on Monday. So it is most likely the shipping company's problem, not the shipper, because he shipped them out the very next day that I bought them, which I was very happy for. So with that said, we're going to put the batteries back in here, get the harnesses hooked up that I need, and just crank this thing over a bunch of times to hopefully get everything recharged. That way, when I get the batteries recharged, it'll fire up relatively quick. Let's hope. So that's what we're going to do now, and I'll be back. Alright, so I cranked it over, and well, I turned it on and off a bunch of times. Try to get the fuel up in the injectors. And then I turned it over, and then shut it off, turned it over, shut it off. Then like the last time I was turning it over, it almost sounded like this thing was trying to fire up, which I don't exactly know how that's possible because that harness is disconnected. I have no power going to the injectors at all, but it damn sure seemed like it was trying to actually start and run. So I shut it off. We're going to take everything off and be done for the day until I actually get that oil deflector on. And then we'll put the harnesses back together and actually try to get this thing started. But yeah, I don't want to fool with it anymore. So, but it turns over fine, and all seems good. So when we get the part, we will be back. Well, we finally got the new parts in. So this is the new one. This is the old one. And as you can tell, it's definitely different and broke. So we're going to throw this one away. We're going to put this one back in the truck. We're going to torque this in, and then we're going to re-torque everything else as far as the injectors and the deflectors. And then we will go ahead and start putting harnesses back in and see if we can get some fire to this thing and see if she runs. So we'll be back in a second. Alright, so we got the oil deflector installed. So now we're going to get these harnesses cleaned up and get these put back on and get them all plugged back in and see if we can get this thing fired up. So we'll be back in a minute. Alright, we got the harnesses all cleaned up and we have everything plugged in. So essentially we are one keystroke away from firing this bad boy up and see if she starts and how she runs, and make sure that I did this right and have no leaks or a runaway. So we are gonna hook up the batteries and go see if we can get this thing started, and I will report what we got when we're done. So be back in a second. Okay, as you can tell, the truck fired up. It did take a little bit, but it cranked harder than it's ever cranked before and faster, and she finally fired up. I have oil coming out of all the oil deflectors. I don't have much oil coming anywhere else, which is awesome, which means all my O-rings sealed and did good. So she runs. She actually runs good. I got zero smoke out the exhaust, which is what I was kind of expecting with everything we've done. But she runs and she's good. So we are going to put this back together, which is valve covers, all the intercooler piping, all that kind of things, and air box. And once I get all that done, I will be back. We are also, while we're in here, going to do the CCV mod, and once I get to a point where I can talk about that, I will be back. So be back in a second. Well, now that it runs, I want to reiterate that I am not a diesel mechanic. I have never worked on a diesel motor before. This is the very first time I have ever pulled out injectors or done anything to this nature. So if I can do it, it's definitely doable if you have a little bit of know-how. But with that said, I did have my piece of plywood to cover up the intake, obviously that side, but I had it to cover up that just in case this thing ran away, that I chipped a O-ring or I didn't put it together right. But obviously I did, because she started up and she runs. But like I said, I'm not a diesel mechanic and I have never done this before. This is the very first time I have ever pulled injectors out of a diesel. So it is possible to do. Now it takes a long time and you got to be patient and you got to do it right, but it is doable if you have a little bit of knowledge of common sense. So I'm going to start buttoning up the passenger side and we'll be back. I know it's not a really good picture, but this is the passenger side all buttoned back up and all ready to go. So we just have the driver's side to go, but first we're going to do the CCV valve mod and get that vent into atmosphere, and I'll show you that here in a second. Okay, so for the CCV valve, so this is your driver's side valve cover. This is your air inlet that this basically sets down in. Actually goes like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically delete it going back into the intake and throwing oil in your intercooler and through your motor. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the CCV valve off. We're going to change out all the O-rings and we're going to flip this 180 degrees. Then what we're going to do, we're going to get these handy dandy adapters, put down in there and clamp it. And then we're going to put some hose down underneath the truck and up over the brake booster. Here is the part numbers for the new O-rings that we're going to use. So once I get this all apart, I will be back. Alright, so we got it off. So you're going to replace these O-rings here and then the O-rings that are underneath the heads of these bolts. And once I get that done, then we're going to clean up this whole area of the valve cover and then flip this out 180 degrees. So instead of this being on this side, it's going to be over here on this side. So once I get that done, I'll be right back. Okay, as you can see, I got the new O-rings on here, the new O-rings on here. Here's the old O-rings. I took the elbow completely off and we're going to put real bang clamps on them, our hose clamps on them to get a little bit tighter fit. I've got this turned around so it's going to be facing the back of the firewall, and then I got this in the hose, and what I did is I had to heat the hose up just a little bit because this is a 5/8 ID hose to get it on the 3/4 inch adapter, and then I just put a hose clamp on it. So we're going to get all this put back together and then get the valve cover put on the engine, and then we'll put that on and get it routed. So I'll be back in 1 second. Alright, we got this CCV valve bolted on. We got it backwards, so it's facing the firewall now. And then I went ahead and mounted this elbow to the tube, and we'll get this valve cover wiped down one more time real good and get it installed, and then we'll put this on and get it routed. So once I get the valve cover on, we'll be back. Okay, as you can see, the valve cover is on. It's all torqued down, everything's there. And then you can see in the back, I've got the hose and the elbow on the back of the CCV valve. I have it routed up and over the brake booster, so if any oil does come out, it will not just drain straight on the ground. It's got to go travel up, so the vapor will leave and go to atmosphere, but the oil will stay in the motor. I have that routed down. You can't really see, but there's an access hole under there, and then I have it routed along the frame. I will zip tie that all up later when I get done up here, but for now I want to finish buttoning this up here because that's done. So CCV mod is 90% done. I just got to zip tie up the extra underneath the truck. So when I get everything up here buttoned up, and once I get that done, I will be back. Alright, you can see I've got everything reinstalled except the air filter and air breather, and the reason for that is I have to find a cap for that before I put it on, and I don't have one, so I'm gonna have to run to the store real quick and get it. But other than that, this thing is wrapped up, and I still have to do something with that. But for the time being, this thing is pretty much done, and I'm gonna take a break and go to the store and buy that plug I need for the intake, and I can come back and get this finished up and take it out for a test drive. So we'll be right back. Alright, quick trip to the parts store and got a vacuum cap, 3/4 inch ID, fits right on it. So now that is plugged up and it won't leak, so we're gonna finish buttoning this thing up and I'll be right back. Alright, so we got it all buttoned back up, everything's plugged back in, and we got the CCV tube routed underneath the truck and zip tied to the frame. So that's going to do it for this video, and the injector swap, well, the injector re-O-ring and the CCV mod video. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and share it with your friends and family. I would appreciate it. And that's going to do it for this one, and we will see you next time. Thank you, everybody.